I never thought a torn dress could unravel my entire life. That's how it began. One careless rip, one embarrassed smile, one lie too polished to question. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the music that night, soft jazz humming through crystal chandeliers, laughter spilling like champagne bubbles, and the click of heels across marble floors. It was the night I was supposed to feel chosen, secure, loved. Instead, it became the night I learned I'd been living as someone else's maid. My name is Raina, and for most of my life, I believed in effort. I believed that if I worked hard enough, loved deeply enough, and stayed loyal, good things would follow. That belief carried me from a tiny studio apartment to the glowing ballroom of the LeClaire Hotel, where my engagement to Ethan Cross, the charming CEO of Crosstech Solutions, was being celebrated. Ethan was the kind of man people stopped to look at. Tall, confident, the kind of presence that made a room turn quieter without him even trying. When we met 3 years ago at a corporate seminar, I was working as an event planner, checking lighting, double-checking catering lists, while he was the keynote speaker talking about innovation and vision. He asked for my card after the event. I thought it was for business. It wasn't. We started as acquaintances, then friends, and before I knew it, my simple little life began to orbit around his world of meetings, glass offices, and power dinners. He said he loved how grounded I was. I believed him. The engagement gala had been his idea. "Raina," he'd said one evening, his voice smooth as silk, "you've worked so hard. I want everyone to see you the way I do." It sounded romantic. It sounded like commitment. I didn't realize it was theater. That night, I wore a silver gown that shimmered like morning frost. Ethan's assistant, Lena, had picked it up from the designer herself. She was efficient, polite, and impossibly stylish, the kind of woman who always looked like she belonged in glossy magazines. She was around Ethan often, but I'd convinced myself it was purely professional. I'd been wrong before, but never like this. The ballroom was packed. Investors, board members, friends, faces I'd seen only in magazines. Ethan stood at the center, holding my hand, announcing our engagement like a press release. Cameras flashed, I smiled. And somewhere inside me, something small and hopeful whispered, "You've made it." It was around 9 when I noticed her, Lena, rushing past the tables, clutching a tray. A tray? At first I thought I was mistaken. She was dressed in black, her hair tied back, carrying glasses like one of the waitstaff. I blinked. It didn't make sense. She looked nervous. Then, in one horrifying instant, she stumbled. A champagne flute slipped, a guest gasped, and the hem of her sleek dress caught on a chair's edge. Rip. The sound sliced through the music. People turned. And Ethan, my Ethan, went pale. "Lena!" he hissed, stepping forward. The crowd stared, whispering. Someone laughed awkwardly. But Lena didn't look at Ethan. She looked at me. "I'm so sorry, miss," she said, her voice trembling. "I was just trying to serve." Serve? That single word landed like a stone in my chest. Why was his assistant pretending to be a waitress? I forced a polite smile. "It's all right. Accidents happen." Ethan's hand tightened around my arm. "Let's not make a scene," he muttered, steering me away. But I could feel eyes on us, the kind of curious, judging eyes that sense when something isn't right. The night carried on, but not for me. Every laugh sounded hollow. Every toast tasted like vinegar. Why was Lena working the floor? Why had Ethan looked panicked? When the party finally ended, I waited for him to explain. He didn't. He poured himself a drink, loosened his tie, and said, "It's been a long night." "You're overthinking things, Raina." Overthinking. That word has a sting only women understand. But as I sat in silence, watching him check his phone with a faint smile, something in me shifted. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was exhaustion. But for the first time since I'd met him, I realized I didn't actually know the man I was about to marry. The next morning, the sunlight filtering through the curtains felt too bright, too sharp, as if the world outside was moving on, unaware that mine had cracked a little. Ethan was already gone, his half of the bed cold. I stared at the indentation on the pillow where his head had rested and wondered how someone could sleep so soundly with lies resting beside them. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the gala had been stressful, that Lena had probably just stepped in to help because the catering staff was short-handed. Logical, right? But logic is no comfort when your heart starts whispering something's off. I made coffee, trying to steady my hands. Ethan's schedule lay open on the kitchen counter, color-coded blocks of meetings, dinners, and names. My own name appeared only twice that week. Dinner with Raina, Thurs, engagement prep, Sat. Lena's name appeared every day. I remember staring at it for a long time. And then I noticed something stranger. An entry for Friday night. Private meeting, 8:30 p.m., Suite 601, Crescent Hotel. No client name. No company. Just those words. Crescent Hotel was the place Ethan and I used to go for weekend getaways before work consumed him. Why would he have a private meeting there? I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over his name. Then I stopped. Calling him would only make me sound suspicious, insecure. Instead, I sent him a short text. Hope your morning's going well. Loved last night. You looked so happy, he replied within minutes. Busy morning. Talk later? No emoji, no warmth. Just like that, a wall began to rise between us. That evening, I went into the office early under the pretext of dropping off documents. Ethan's company lobby was glass and steel, cold, immaculate, efficient, like everything he built. The receptionist smiled politely. Mr. Cross is in a meeting, she said. With Lena? She nodded. Yes, in the boardroom. I almost turned back. Almost. But curiosity is a dangerous comfort when you feel unseen. I lingered in the hallway outside the frosted glass door, their voices faint but clear enough. Ethan's tone was sharp. You shouldn't have shown up like that last night. Do you know what kind of mess you created? Lena's voice trembled. You told me to stay close, Ethan. You said she shouldn't suspect anything. My stomach dropped. Every syllable hit like ice, I said discreetly. He snapped. Now she's probably suspicious. There was a pause, and then Lena's voice softened. You said we'd tell her soon. Ethan's sigh, tired, exasperated. I'll handle it, just stay away for now. I didn't hear the rest. I couldn't. My chest burned. My hands felt numb. I turned and walked out of that hallway like a ghost, nodding at the receptionist, pretending everything was fine. Outside, the air felt too thin to breathe. The city traffic roared like static in my ears. Tell her soon. Tell me what, Ethan? That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My engagement ring glittered like it was mocking me. I replayed every moment in my mind. Every late-night call he took in the hallway, every just business trip, every time he came home smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. And suddenly, it all connected. The silence, the distance, the way Lena always looked. Guilty? I decided to test him. When he came home, I smiled like nothing was wrong. How was your meeting? I asked casually. He blinked, caught off guard. Which one? The one at Crescent Hotel. His expression froze for half a second. Barely noticeable, but enough. Oh, that. A client dinner. You wouldn't know him. I tilted my head, pretending to believe. You could have invited me. You know I love that place. He forced a laugh. Next time. But I saw it, the way his hand twitched against his glass, the way his eyes darted away. He was lying. And that lie became the first brick in the wall I began to build between us. Not to protect him, but to protect myself. The following days were a blur of forced smiles and heavy silences. Ethan was always busy. Lena stopped coming to the office altogether. When I asked about her, he said she'd taken some time off for personal reasons. It should have been comforting. It wasn't. Something was brewing beneath the surface. And I could feel it. Like standing in the calm before a storm you can already smell in the air. Then came the message. It was Friday evening when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single text. You deserve to know the truth. Check Suite 601 tonight, 8:30. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. There it was again, Suite 601, the same one in Ethan's calendar. For a long minute, I just sat there, phone trembling in my hand, wondering if I really wanted to know. But the truth doesn't wait, and neither did I. That night, I drove to the Crescent Hotel. The parking lot shimmered with rain, neon lights reflecting in puddles. I walked through the lobby, heart hammering, and took the elevator to the 6th floor. Each floor chimed like a countdown. When the doors opened, I saw the suite at the end of the hallway, 601. The door was slightly ajar. I took a breath and pushed it open, and there they were. Ethan, Lena, sitting close on the couch, her hand resting over his. The look on their faces when they saw me said everything words never could. For a moment, time stopped. The hum of the air conditioner, the faint clink of a glass somewhere in the room. Everything seemed to fall away until all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Lena's hand froze mid-air, resting on Ethan's sleeve. Ethan stood up so fast the whiskey in his glass sloshed onto the carpet. "Raina, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked around the suite. 2 glasses on the table. A half-eaten dessert. The faint scent of Lena's perfume. Sweet, citrus, expensive, filling the air. "Tell me the truth, Ethan." My voice came out calm, almost detached. "How long has this been going on?" He ran a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think." Lena flinched, her eyes glistening. "Ethan, shut up, Lena!" He snapped, but the damage was already done. I took a step closer. "You told her to stay away, remember? That I shouldn't suspect anything?" His face drained of color. "You were listening?" "Yes," I whispered. "And for once, I'm glad I did." Silence stretched between us like a live wire. Then Ethan dropped the act. The polished CEO facade melted away, and the man underneath looked small, cornered. "She needed me, Raina," he said, voice softening. "She was going through something, and I made a mistake." I laughed bitterly. A mistake that booked hotel rooms, scheduled private meetings, and paraded me around like a trophy fiancé? Lena's voice trembled. "He said it was over between you two." I turned to her, really seeing her for the first time. Not the perfect assistant, not the woman in the black dress from the gala, but someone fragile, confused, maybe manipulated. "Did he tell you I was just his maid too?" She looked away, tears spilling down her cheeks. That one look told me everything. He'd told her that I was nobody. That I was someone who just worked for him, someone who didn't matter. And suddenly the night of the gala came flooding back. The way she'd called me miss, the way everyone had looked at me. The confusion, the humiliation. It wasn't an accident. It was a script. "You used me," I said, my voice shaking. "You built your image on my loyalty and made me believe I belonged in your world." Ethan tried to reach for me. "Raina, I didn't mean for you to find out like this." "Then how are you planning it?" I cut in. "A press release. CEO trades fiancé for assistant? Maybe another grand gala to celebrate your upgrade?" He sighed, exasperated. "You're being dramatic. You've always been emotional." That word. Emotional. It was the spark that finally lit the fire. "I spent 3 years of my life helping you build your empire." "Ethan," I said, stepping closer until we were face to face. "Do you know what I gave up for you?" "My own business. My time, my peace." "And all that time you were planning your next perfect photo," Lena whispered. "Raina, please." I turned to her. "You don't need to say anything. You've already told me enough." And with that, I pulled the engagement ring from my finger. It left a faint pale circle on my skin, like a ghost of a promise that never existed. I placed it on the glass table. It made a soft clink, almost too gentle for what it meant. Then I walked toward the door. Ethan's voice followed me. "You'll regret this. You're walking away from everything we built." I stopped. My hand on the doorknob. "Everything we built?" I said softly. "You mean everything I built for you while you were busy building lies?" Then I walked out. The hallway felt endless. Each step echoed louder than the last. When the elevator doors closed behind me, I finally let the tears fall. Not quiet. Pretty tears, but the kind that come from deep inside. From betrayal and exhaustion and disbelief. People always say betrayal feels like a knife. But they're wrong. It feels like gravity giving way beneath you. And suddenly you're falling through everything you thought was solid. By the time I reached the street, the rain had started again. Soft, relentless. Washing over me as if trying to erase the night. I let it. The days that followed were a blur of silence. I moved out of Ethan's apartment without telling him. Packed my things in cardboard boxes while he was at work. I left behind everything he'd ever given me. Clothes, jewelry, the car keys. I only kept one thing, my old planner. The one where I'd written ideas for my own event company, long before he convinced me to quit. Somewhere between heartbreak and humiliation, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry at Lena anymore. I was angry at myself. For ignoring the signs. For mistaking control for love. But anger can be fuel when you point it in the right direction. A week later, I got a call. It was Ava, one of Ethan's colleagues from PR. Raina, she said carefully, I don't know if you've seen the news. I hadn't. But I opened my laptop. There it was. CEO's secret affair with assistant exposed, corporate whistleblower reveals scandal at Crosstech. Photos, messages, emails, everything. Apparently, one of Ethan's former investors had leaked the story after losing millions in a bad deal. And the affair? It was the final blow. Crosstech's stock was already plummeting. Ava sighed. I thought you should know. He's blaming you, I almost laughed. Of course he is. But I hadn't leaked anything. Life had simply caught up to him. Karma doesn't need an invitation. It shows up when the mask finally cracks. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my old planner. My handwriting stared back at me. Dream big. Start small. Stay kind. For the first time in weeks, I smiled, because I realized I wasn't the maid. I was the builder, the dreamer, the survivor, and that was something no man could take from me. I spent the weekend in a quiet apartment I'd rented under my own name, away from Ethan, away from judgmental eyes, away from everything that reminded me of the life I thought I had. But quiet doesn't erase betrayal. It doesn't stop the replay of moments, the way he laughed at my jokes while texting her under the table, the way his hand lingered near hers when he thought I wasn't looking. That gnawing ache wouldn't leave, so I decided to act, not recklessly, not out of spite, but carefully, deliberately, with the precision that comes when heartbreak turns to resolve. First, I documented everything. Every text I had overlooked, every email chain, every dinner he had scheduled at Crescent Hotel for business. I printed copies. I saved screenshots. I didn't plan to blackmail him. I planned to reclaim my dignity. Then came the call I had been dreading. Ethan. Raina, he said, voice carefully casual. We need to talk. Can we meet? I took a deep breath. We can talk. At a cafe tomorrow morning. Public place. Noon. The next day, I arrived 30 minutes early, seated in a corner where I could watch him approach. Ethan walked in, tailored suit, perfect smile, like he hadn't destroyed my trust, like he hadn't orchestrated months of lies. He began. I raised a hand. No, you don't get to start this with excuses, he swallowed. Raina, I made a mistake. I leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. You didn't make a mistake, Ethan. You made a choice. A series of choices. And those choices humiliated me, lied to me, and treated me like a pawn. He opened his mouth again, but I didn't let him continue. You thought you could control the narrative, control me. But you forgot one thing. I'm not a character in your story. I'm the author of my own. I slid the printed documents across the table. You want proof? Here it is. Every lie, every plan, every deception. I kept this for myself, not to hurt you, but to remember who I am. Ethan's face went pale as he scanned the pages. Raina, please. Don't. I shook my head. I will. But only to protect myself. Because I'm done being invisible in your world. Then came the final act. The one that felt like both a punishment and liberation. I made a public post on LinkedIn. Today, I step away from partnerships that do not honor respect, honesty, and integrity. Let this be a reminder that no career, no relationship, no promise is worth losing yourself. I didn't name him. I didn't need to. Those who knew would connect the dots. Within hours, whispers reached Ethan's board. He tried to call me. I didn't answer. For the first time, I felt a subtle shift. A lightness that came not from revenge, but from taking control. I had reclaimed my narrative. Meanwhile, Lena reached out. Her messages were awkward, hesitant. Raina, I'm sorry. I didn't know. He made me think. I never meant to hurt you. I read it, paused, then replied simply, be honest with yourself. That's all that matters. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need validation. I needed only my truth, my clarity, and the quiet knowledge that I had taken my power back. That week, the news spiraled. Ethan's affair became a headline, the leaked documents creating a storm that even he couldn't navigate with charm or authority. Rumors swirled about his mismanagement, and even the gala incident, the torn dress, the whispered confusion, was circulating in social circles. I watched from a distance, a small, almost imperceptible smile on my face. Not gloating, just relief. The man who had built his empire on appearances, on manipulation, was finally facing reality. And I was free. At night in my quiet apartment, I sat with a cup of chamomile tea. The rain outside traced lazy lines down the window pane. I reflected on the lessons I had learned. Trust is not given, it's earned. Love is not a performance, it's lived. And self-worth is not defined by the men who fail to see it. I had allowed myself to be blinded by charm and status. But I wouldn't again. And as I pored over my old planner, ideas for my own event company, dreams I had shelved for him, a spark of excitement lit within me. This time the story was mine. Every event, every detail, every triumph, authentically mine. The next few weeks were surreal. Ethan's world, once so polished, began to crumble in ways he never anticipated. The leaked affair, combined with my subtle LinkedIn post and the documents I had preserved, ignited whispers that quickly became a storm. His colleagues, investors, and even some clients began questioning his judgment, not just in business, but in character. I didn't have to lift a finger to spread the truth. My integrity and calm handling of the situation spoke louder than any public declaration. People who had once seen me as the fiancé in the picture-perfect dress now looked at me differently, as someone who had been wronged but didn't allow humiliation to define her. At the office, Ethan faced more than just embarrassment. His closest allies began distancing themselves. Private messages from board members warned of shaken trust. Meetings were rescheduled. Key investors withdrew from pending deals. He had built an empire on appearances, and appearances alone couldn't withstand exposure. Then came the gala video, the very moment Lena had torn her dress. Someone had captured it, and it surfaced online. The video went viral, with viewers commenting in disbelief. Who knew the fiancé was being played? And he thought he was clever, but the truth always comes out. Ethan called me again, desperation in his voice this time. "Raina, please. Can we talk?" I didn't answer. I knew he expected confrontation, pleading, or even reconciliation. But I wasn't going to provide that theater. Instead, I focused on myself, my career, my well-being, my future. I started small, designing intimate corporate events, using the skills I had honed while planning everything for Ethan's world. I was meticulous, attentive, and creative. My first client, a boutique technology firm, praised not only the quality of my work, but the way I handled myself with grace under pressure. Word of mouth spread faster than I expected. Soon I was managing larger projects. Invitations arrived for high-profile events. Opportunities that had felt distant while I was entangled in Ethan's web now came knocking at my door, and I walked through each one with confidence. The public consequences for Ethan continued. His reputation as a devoted partner and visionary leader suffered a noticeable dent. It wasn't my doing. It was simply the natural outcome of deception and arrogance being revealed. I felt no joy in it, only a quiet, steady satisfaction that justice doesn't always need aggression. Sometimes it simply requires truth. Even Lena eventually reached out in a more meaningful way. She had left Crosstech, stepped back from the chaos, and was working to rebuild her own life. Her apology was sincere. I see now that we were both caught in his manipulation. "I'm sorry for my part in it, Raina. I didn't need her absolution, but I gave it nonetheless." There was no bitterness, only acknowledgement. We had both been pawns in a larger game. Friends and family noticed the transformation in me. "You've grown so much," my sister said one afternoon, holding my hand tightly. "You didn't let him break you." And she was right. I hadn't. I had allowed myself to feel every ounce of betrayal and hurt, but I had refused to let it define me. I had turned heartbreak into strength, humiliation into wisdom, and deceit into clarity. I also realized that the gala, the torn dress, the whispers, the exposure, had been a turning point. Without that moment of public embarrassment, I may have stayed in denial, blinded by love and loyalty. Sometimes life gives you the shock you need to see yourself clearly. I began mentoring young women in my field, sharing not only event planning skills, but the lessons I had learned about trust, respect, and personal boundaries. I wanted them to know, being kind and hardworking does not mean being taken for granted. Knowing your worth is not arrogance, it is survival. Ethan eventually faded from my life. He remained in the public eye for a while, but I no longer felt any attachment, anger, or longing. I had reclaimed my story, my dignity, and my direction, and yet the public consequences weren't just about him. They were about me stepping fully into my own power. The whispered gossip, the viral video, the fallout, it all became the backdrop for my growth. I didn't need revenge to feel vindicated. Life had done that quietly, gracefully, and I had walked away with my head held high. It was the first time in years I truly felt the weight of freedom. A freedom that wasn't just about leaving him, but about leaving behind self-doubt, misplaced loyalty, and the fear of being invisible.